solar inverter versus normal inverters. As we know that earlier, whenever the solar has not been there in the market, so we are using the inverters over here actually. So basic role of an inverter is that whenever we are using any kind of a normal inverter where the solar power has not been introduced over there basically, so wherever the light will be available or electricity will be available, we are storing that power into the battery with the help of the inverter, because inverter converts the AC into the DC form of the energy or DC into the AC form of the energy also. And once the any kind of the electricity outage will going to get happen in the corresponding residential home system actually, so that time again the battery will going to just give supply to the inverter. Inverter convert the DC form of a battery power into the AC form, and again it will be given to the home appliances over here. So basically the main role of using this inverter is that we can just invert the power from the alternating current to the DC current, and in the form of the direct current we can just store the power in terms of the battery over here. And whenever any electricity outage is happening, we can use the DC form of the electricity which is stored in the battery to be converted into the AC form, and further we can just power our home appliances over here. So with the help of the solar technology also actually, we can just introduce the solar inverter in the market. So basically there are slight difference between the solar inverter and the normal UPS or inverter what we are using in the earlier cases. So basically we know the main role of a solar inverter is that it is a device which is converts the DC current into the alternating form of the current. The home inverter converts the DC stored into the battery into the AC form of the electricity, what we have seen in the earlier cases. But whenever we're talking regarding the solar home system, the solar home system is consisting of the solar panels, the charge controller, your batteries and inverters over here. In the solar inverter, basically the photovoltaic solar panel produces the variable form of the DC current, and the solar inverter converts this DC into the alternating form of the current. Because we know when we are connecting the number of solar panel in the series or the parallel combination, and their power we are just giving to the charge controller or the solar inverter over here. So basically the off-grid kind of the solar inverter is inbuilt fitted with the charge controller over here actually. The role of a charge controller is to convert the variable form of the DC voltage what we are getting from the solar panel into the stable form of the DC voltage. Because as good as from morning to the evening, solar radiations are changing on the falling over the corresponding solar panel. There is a variation of voltage and the current is happening from the corresponding solar panels actually. So that is time every time we are having the variable form of a DC current and the voltage, and that has to be converted into the stable form of the DC current, and later it will be given to the DC to AC converter for an inversion from DC to the AC format over here actually. So whenever we're talking regarding the solar inverter, solar off-grid kind of the inverter actually, it is inbuilt fitted with the charge controller inside it, and later it just convert the DC form into the AC form of the electricity. So whatever amount of the power it has been generated by the panel, it has been taken by this inverter, and again it has been given to the home appliances over here. So that is the main role of the solar inverter, what it is performing over here actually. Whenever we talking this alternating current can be feed into the commercial electric grid or the off-grid electrical network over here. If our earlier solar system has been connected with the electricity utility or the grid, then whatever amount of the excess energy is been produced, that is also we can give to the electrical grid over here actually. So that is a very smart function has been done by the solar inverters. The solar panels can be placed at a home or the office over the rooftop area, and converted this AC power can be used to power the home appliances over here actually. So basically when we are just comparing the normal inverter and the solar inverter is the intelligent inverter comparing to the normal inverter. Its main function to the conversion from DC to AC, that is the first. Its second function is what? If it is an on-grid kind of a solar system we are dealing with a battery capacity, it synchronizes with the grid also. It synchronizes with the grid, so whatever amount of the excess power is generated, it will going to send to the grid also. And what amount of the excess power the consumer needs, that amount of the power it imports from the grid also. Next thing is that it will going to charge the battery also over here. Actually, it will going to charge the battery, because the off-grid kind or the hybrid kind of an inverter, they are having the inbuilt charge controller in the inverter actually. So this charge controller functions or the monitors the voltage and the current which is to be given to the corresponding battery over here actually. So basically it is having the three intelligent function: DC to AC conversion, synchronization with the grid, and the charging of the battery over here also. So basically here actually the automatic switch has been available over here. So whatever amount of the daytime solar power we are getting, so that is to be given to the battery and the home appliances. And in the night time when solar power is not been available, it is been power taken from the battery and given to the home appliances. When the battery is out of storage system or it is close to the depth of discharge, then again it will just going to convert the switch towards the grid supply, and it will import the power from the grid over here actually. So like the smart inversion function, it has been done by the solar inverter compared to the normal kinds of the inverter. So whenever we talk, the solar inverter and the normal inverter are one and the same entity, but whatever the circuitry it is there inside the solar inverter, that could be different compared to the normal inverter. The difference of the solar inverter from the normal inverter is that solar inverter consisting of charge controller that we have seen, and some of the switching circuit which is an automatic changer also, we can say it over here. Solar inverter has a terminal for connecting the battery. So every solar inverter or normal inverter will have a terminal for connections of the battery connection and the solar panels of the correct rating. So basically solar inverter will have a terminals for solar panel connection also and terminals for the battery connection also. But in normal inverter, we don't have any terminal for the solar panel connection, but only one terminal for the battery connection over here. The battery is charged from the output of the solar panel, and when it is under the sufficient sunlight is been available, it allows reducing the electricity bill actually whenever we compare the both inverters over here. The normal inverter can be converted into the solar inverter actually by connecting the charge controller along with the automatic transfer switch. So if we have earlier kinds of the normal inverter, and if I want to convert the system into the solar system over here, so in that case we have to introduce the charge controller in the system, and some of transferring switches are been required over here actually, which will automatically transfer the switch towards the battery and towards the grid and towards the solar panels over here actually. So basically, if the solar panel gives the sufficient power to charge the battery, then automatic transfer switch will be routed towards the battery over here actually. And automatically we can just charge the battery also through charge controller, or we can extract the power from the battery also whenever there is no sunlight has been available. At the time, it does not take supply from the main supply actually. It will just utilize the solar power and the battery power, but both are getting exhausted or the consumer power demand will be more. Only that cases it will connect towards the grid and it will synchronize with the grid actually to import the power from the grid over here. If the solar panel does not give the sufficient supply, then the battery charges from the main supply by automatic routing towards the automatic transfer switch over here. So basically in this diagram, it has been shown that how the normal inverters are converted towards the solar inverter actually. So this is a normal UPS. In the earlier case, a consumer has been utilizing this. So whatever the pin we are getting, this we are just giving towards the switch over here actually. So through the switch actually, we are just importing the grid power and we are just charging the battery by inverting the AC power into the DC power. So there is a terminals has been given for the battery connections over here. So we take out the power from the battery whenever there is electricity is been available, we charge the battery, and whenever electricity is not there, we take a power from the battery and we just give towards the home appliances over here. But whenever we want to convert the system into the solar inverter system actually, so that time if we are connecting the solar panel connection to this inverter, it will not accept these connections over here actually, because whatever the supply we are getting, it is a variable DC voltage we are getting actually. So that is why we have to attach a system that there is a one charge controller has been fitted over here. So we give supply of the solar panels towards the charge controller. It will convert the variable DC into the stable form of a DC voltage. One terminal we are giving for the battery charging purposes, and just routing we are just giving towards the inverter over here actually. And if required, some of the DC appliances if we are using, so we can just direct give the connections to the DC appliances also. But whenever we want to convert the normal inverter into the solar inverter, we require to be introduced the charge controller in the system over here actually. Then the system can be used as an solar powered system also, we can say it over here. In the second diagram, this is a solar inverter we are using over here, and that to be the solar hybrid inverter we are using actually. So in that cases, whatever the solar panels we are using, whether it could be connected in the series or the parallel mode, so their power we are giving to the MCBs over here. In the bigger case, we are giving through the SPDs also, because we want to protect the system. But the smaller kinds of the solar home systems, we can just directly give power to the fuse or towards the MCB over here. And then we can give power to the hybrid kind of the solar inverter. So whatever the variable DC form of the electricity we are getting, that we are just giving to the hybrid kind of the solar inverter. One terminal is been given to the battery connections over here. So as per requirement, we can change the ampere hour rating of a battery and system voltage of a battery, where we are connecting the battery in the series and parallel mode over here. So basically whatever power we are getting from the solar panel in the DC format, it is been given to the batteries over here through the stable DC conversion through the inbuilt charge controller, which is fitted inside the hybrid solar inverter over here. Next, whatever the grid, if we are utilizing this corresponding power, so we have to use the bi-directional meter in the system, which is also called as the net metering system over here. So basically whenever we want at the night time, whenever the battery is also discharged over here actually, and we want to charge the battery and we want to power the home appliances also. So that time we can import the solar electricity, import the electricity from the utility supplier or the on-grid over here actually, and we can give the connections towards the hybrid kind of the solar inverter. So basically in the hybrid solar inverter, there is automatic transfer switch has been available. So in the daytime, whenever sufficient power has been available, so the switch is transferred towards the battery charging over here. So battery will going to get charged, and also the appliances are powered by the solar electricity. So whenever there is radiations are falling lesser in the manner over here in the late evening situation, and batteries are also full charge over here actually, it will just automatically route the switches towards the battery. So the battery, now it will going to take out the power from the battery and it will going to power our home appliances. After the transfer switch comes that, or after the controller senses that the battery is having near close to the depth of discharge over here actually, then it will automatically transfer the switch towards the grid actually, and then it will just take a power from the grid. Simultaneously it will charge the battery also, and simultaneously it will power the home appliances also over here. So in these cases, the solar inverter works as a smart inverter over here. So it will just synchronizes with the grid also. It will just control the battery charging also. It will control the connections of the solar panels also.